Man, it was great to have people back at the link.
It was. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming. It was a little smaller turnout than I expected, but I could see being skittish being around that many people. But it was a really cool atmosphere. The crowd was into it, and I'm we didn't have a chance to talk to players after practice, but I'm sure for the rookies and even for the second year guys, I mean they had never been to anything like that other than the Dallas game. If they happened to play, I think there was a big crowd there. But as far as the link being home, hearing Eagles fans cheering for them, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. I'm sure a lot of people did a little double header too. Hit up the Phillies game in the afternoon and then head over to the link. That's a good day. Yeah, the Eagles, what did they say? Like 25, 26,000. I don't think there were quite as many people as that. Maybe that was tickets sold, but the lower bowl was mostly full. It was a good crowd.
Yeah, it was a good crowd, and yeah, and I love that kind of stuff doing because I mean the Phillies game was quick. It was over by, gosh, I think it was over by about 4. You just
Yeah, it's funny. The one day, some of those people probably wouldn't have minded it being a long baseball game because they could have gone right to the stadium. They had some
yeah, you
hours to
just
kill.
go to Xfinity Live for an
Yeah,
hour, get something to
exactly.
eat, get a beer, and head over to the link. Too bad there wasn't a concert at the Wells Fargo.
Triple
You
header?
made a little triple header.
That's a lot. You know what
Have
else
you
was?
ever have you give me a day? Was there a day where you did something like that? Where you did like, because I remember when I was in college, we went to a Columbus Clippers minor league game. They had a 12:30 game, and then we drove up to Cleveland as soon as the game ended. Went to an Indians game
Oh, that's cool.
or a
Yeah, I,
Guardians.
I've done it. I mean, I've done it just at down in South Philly when the Phillies afternoon game and then a game at night.
I remember when we worked at the Burlington County Times, I would cover 2 football games on a Saturday, like a
Oh
like a,
yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
a 1 o'clock game and a 4 o'clock game. You get back to the office and have all these stats like you have to figure out.
Yeah,
You
you got
forget
the
which
wrong
game.
quarterback on the
Yeah.
on the team. Yeah, it was fun though. It was a good time, the open practice. So we'll go through some things we saw out there, and it's always fun when we get these public practices because it's a chance for fans to see what we've been telling them.
Right.
And you just hope that things stay the same. Like, if someone's been having a terrible camp and all of a sudden he gets out there and has a great camp, you're like, no, I promise he hasn't been doing that. But a lot of the things that we've seen kind of translated to that open practice, which is cool because it's kind of everyone gets to see what we've been seeing. We'll go through the linebacker position a little bit today. Alex Singleton back on the field. That's a big deal for them. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts. We haven't really talked about his performance much in training camp, except for here and there. We'll kind of give some overall thoughts on him and the defense as well. And we'll have a stock up, stock down at the end. But you know what else was cool about that open practice? I don't know if you picked up on it. One of the loudest cheers when the team was entering the field was for Zach Ertz, which I think that's pretty cool. I mean, who knows if he'll be here for the opener, but it's starting to look more and more likely. And just the fact that he gets those, it's been a weird offseason for him. And he cares about the city, he cares about the fan base. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you never know how that's going to go with a guy who's kind of embroiled in a contract situation or that kind of thing. But I think that was fans understanding that it might be the last time they get to cheer for him. Who
Yeah.
knows? And it was kind of a thank you for the Super Bowl, for fourth down, and for the touchdown, and for just 8 years of 8 years of 7 years of really good play and 1 year of bad play. But no, he's an all-time great. And I think it was also an acknowledgement of just what he touched on this, but just, I mean, the charity work he does in the community. He's always had a real affinity for this city. Like, some players just don't connect with the city. They might play here 11 years. I'm not thinking about any quarterback in particular from Syracuse, but you could be here a long time and never really connect with the city and the fans. But I think Zach Ertz has really done that in a very, very deep and genuine way and meaningful way.
Are we not
And
allowed to say his name either?
yeah, we're just not going to mention any QBs today, but any former QBs, but drafted with the second pick overall. But yeah, it was cool to hear.
Yeah, it was. Let's go through some of that practice. One of the things we've been talking about a lot over the last week or so has been Quez Watkins. And he has his best day of camp. He was making plays all over the field.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's the one guy. I mean, I just did a piece, I think the day before, where I said he's been the best receiver in camp, and then he goes out and proves me right. So that was kind of cool. But he has been. I mean, it was his best practice. He got more opportunities, but I mean, he's been doing that pretty consistently. He's caught the ball. He's the one guy that's just caught the ball consistently and made plays. You know, and I thought he might just be kind of a speed guy. You know, just and he obviously is very fast, but he's got good hands. He makes circus catches. He seems to track the ball well, which was a knock on him coming out. That, you know, he had the great speed, but he didn't track the ball well. But he does, and he gets where he needs. I mean, that tumbling catch in the end zone, you know, that's just a great play. And
over Anthony Harris too. That was a first team rep. He hasn't gotten many first team reps.
right.
He deserves more, but that was like kind of late in that period of practice, and he got out there. It was a tremendous catch.
It really was. And, you know, it was probably his best play of the summer, but he's been catching the ball every time he has to. And have you seen him drop a pass?
No.
Me either. He's been really good. It's gonna be interesting to see what kind of role he carves out and how he fits into that position. Because I feel like that position with Devontae sidelined for a couple of weeks, you know, the position is just waiting for somebody to kind of take that next step and say, look at me. And he's done that.
Yeah, I'd really like to see him get more first team reps.
Yeah.
Whether it's outside, inside, just I think he deserves it at this point to get more looks than guys like Travis Fulgham and even Greg Ward, who we know what Greg Ward is. He doesn't need the first team reps. You can always go back to Greg Ward. I want to see more of Quez Watkins with the first team. And I hope they do it.
To me, Fulgham's the one guy who, you know, and he actually had a better day yesterday. He caught a couple balls, but I think Quez has outplayed him and certainly deserves some of his reps with the first group.
Yeah, and you're right. Fulgham, we've kind of talked about it a lot. He's had these chances to make great catches, and he hasn't made any of them until Sunday night. He made a really nice catch on the sideline. They were in a move drill, so it was third down. He caught that, and then he caught a ball on fourth down in the middle of the field. So he was actually playing a little bit better on Sunday, and they could use that. I mean, if he starts to turn it on a little bit, that'd be great for them.
Yeah, the consistency just hasn't been there for Fulgham. Let's see, can he build on it Tuesday? And there's not as many practices now because the games are starting. So you really got to take advantage of these opportunities. They seem to really like Fulgham, you know, when it comes to, he's getting a ton of first team reps. So see if he can, you know, if he can just catch the ball more consistently, and he hasn't done that.
Yeah, and there's some more reps to go around now because John Hightower has a groin injury. He's week to week. That was one of the bigger newsy items from the injury report. A couple other ones. Brandon Brooks back at practice. He was limited on Sunday. He didn't do any team drills, but he's back in individuals, so that's a good sign for him. He was day to day for a week. He missed, so it's a hamstring, so they don't want to push him too hard. And then the other one is Isaac Seumalo. They upgraded him from week to day to day, which is a sign, at least from their perspective, that he's getting closer to a return. They've missed those two guys. I mean, even though they have some depth at guard, it's a big drop off from Seumalo and Brooks to if it's Herbig and Sua or Herbig and Driscoll. Yeah, it's a big drop off.
Yeah, you're right. And really all that matters is those guys are back for the opener. But, you know, just for the offense in general, and we've talked a lot about it, the offense hasn't been particularly sharp this summer. If you line up Mulata, Seumalo, Kelsey, Brooks, and Lane, the offense is going to look better.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else?
And Jalen needs that. I mean, Jalen needs to get reps behind that group. Yeah,
it will be nice just for the offense to just get something going. Josh Sweat, again, he's been a monster. He had an incredible rep against Andre Dillard. I mean, just put him on roller skates. It was bad. He's given Dillard fits all summer. And the cool thing about it is, you know, when Sweat came in the league, he was just this gangly, lanky kid. and he had to go around everyone. He's strong enough now, and he's learned how to use his leverage. He has a really good stab. He's going through, guys. He's going through, Dillard.
Yeah, was he in year 4 now?
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely come a long way. He's gotten a little better each year, and I think everybody around the team expects a big jump from him this year.
It feels like he's the hype guy this year. Like,
it feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, I think he's been better in this camp than Derek Barnett, and I think Derek Barnett's had a really good camp. These guys they didn't want to call it a competition, and I get it because they're both going to play. It wouldn't surprise me to see Sweat earn the starting gig because he's playing that well, but Barnett's been really good, and he's gotten overshadowed a little bit just because Sweat's been demolishing everyone.
Yeah. It's I'm so curious how this whole thing is gonna shape up, and I mean they're all gonna play. Gannon has said he's going to rotate these guys, so they've. I thought the D line in general underachieved a little bit last year, just as a group. The Eagles ended up 3rd in sacks in the league, so it's kind of hard to say that. And they were pretty good against the run, really, considering everything. But you just feel like one of these years, if this D line could put it together, and now they have more depth, they can really, they could potentially be the best or one of the 3 or 4 best D lines in the league.
Yeah, it's fun because 2 of the best D lines in the league are in the division because Washington is stacked,
loaded. Yeah.
So I think the Eagles are I think they're behind them, but I think they're just behind them. I do. I think there's a lot of talent on this defensive line.
Yeah. So, but again, it's the older guys like BG and Fletch and Kerrigan got to be healthy, and that's been a problem around here.
Yeah. I was watching the 101 drills. Jordan Mailata just so strong. I mean, it's the one area where Dillard, he's worked to improve it. He's worked to improve his base and his anchor. And Mailata just does it more naturally. I mean, he sits down and he stuffs guys. And it's something that Dillard's really struggled with this camp. And Mailata's been really smooth with it.
Yeah, isn't it funny how the 7th round pick looks so much more natural than the 1st round pick?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to watch tape of these guys and say which one of these players started playing football 4 years ago, I mean, not many people would get that right. You're
right, and he still hasn't played that much football in his life.
Yeah,
played 10 games in his life. So, when do you think they're going to end the charade and just say, look, Jordan Mailata's our left tackle, because they need to work together?
And part of me thinks, like, if Dillard is going to be here, I'd start cross-training him at right tackle.
Or even guard or something.
I don't think he has the strength to be a guard.
I don't either, but I certainly don't, certainly the jury's out on his ability to right tackle.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think he has the ability to play right tackle. I think he needs the reps there, and I'd want to get them now. I mean, if you're cross-training everyone else, if they're cross-training Driscoll at guard, they're getting Herbig center snaps. I understand they want to still do this competition, but it's pretty obvious Mailata's a better player. I'd start the cross-train Dillard at right tackle. That way he can be your backup swing tackle if he's here.
Yeah, and especially once Sayamalo comes back, you want Mailata and Isaac to get as much work together as possible, because they haven't really played all that much together, and that's a huge part of that. It's not just being the best left tackle; it's how you work with the left guard. So, I would say if Sayamalo is back, the first practice would be Saturday after the Steelers game. If he's back practicing, I think they need to name Mailata. Oh, they're not going to name him. He'll just start getting all the reps.
Yeah,
and
it'll be pretty clear, I would think.
It'll be pretty obvious. So it's if you want to. I mean, they only have one practice left Tuesday. I think Monday's a walkthrough, Tuesday's a practice, Wednesday are off because it's day before a game. So he's not going to do anything now. But after the game Thursday, it's going to be time to end this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I understand wanting to make it fair, and I get why they want to give their first round pick every opportunity to win the job, but it's not happening.
And Dillard did have a couple okay reps
I actually thought Sunday was one of his better days.
He had a couple good reps in one-on-one, I thought.
Yeah, and even in team drills, aside from that one where he got blown up, I mean, he had some he was good. Like he even had a nice running play where he got
He
to the
did.
second level, and I don't think he's a bad player. I just think Mailata is clearly better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't know how good he is. The difference is clear. Can he play left tackle in the league at a consistently solid functional level? I'm not convinced yet. We'll see. We'll find out if somebody offers a 5th-round pick for him.
Would you do that? What would it take for you to trade him? I wouldn't trade him for a 5, I don't think.
I guess part of that would depend on if I think he's got a chance to play right tackle. But again, yeah, it's a great question. I probably wouldn't do that either. We think of Mailata is pretty indestructible. He's kind of but he's had back issues. He's had injuries.
I mean, for a 6'8", what is he? 330 pounds?
Yeah, I think he said he's down to 25.
325, whatever it is. For a guy that big to have back issues, and he's had, I mean, twice in his career.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that's always been in the back of my mind with him. But I mean, you can't operate in fear. But we like last year they got decimated by injuries. So to trade Dillard for a 5th, I probably wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't either. Plus, it's just so embarrassing to trade a former 1st-round pick just 3 years later for a 5th-round pick. Nobody's going to offer you a 3 or better, certainly. Would you take a 4? I don't know. I probably would.
I think 4 is like the kind of cutoff point in my mind where, or maybe I would do that.
Yeah. Maybe there's a team out there that thinks he can play. We'll see.
Let's move on from that. Milton Williams has started to struggle a little bit more. I think he's getting more comfortable inside and outside. And I was kind of against the idea of him playing outside. And ultimately, I still think he's better off inside, but he's flashed more as an end.
Yeah, I think that's why they like him there. I mean, he's a powerful kid. Just his strength.
Quick. His first step is as quick as anyone on the team, which is impressive for a guy who's, what is he, 284?
I think Barnett's first step is the fastest on the team.
Okay.
But
I'm being a little hyperbolic, but you get what my point. He's quick off the ball.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. And I really, he's one of those guys I'm going to really be watching Thursday night. I just want to see him in game action against another team. And I would think he'll play a lot. How much playing time is he earning? He's had a good camp. He's a really smart kid, and he's able to, we asked him, I think a few days ago, about how they're throwing a lot at him inside and outside and different sides and all this stuff. He's like, I'm a smart guy. I can handle it. I'm not falling behind physically. And it's interesting. That's something I think all the rookies are pretty smart. You don't see guys kind of falling behind and getting all this stuff thrown at them. They're able to function pretty well. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of playing time Milton Williams gets once the season starts, because I think he's going to play.
I do too. I mean, even if it's inside or outside, their third defensive tackle is probably him. I mean, I know they brought Hassan Ridgeway back. Here's something else, though. T.Y. McGill's outplayed Hassan Ridgeway in camp.
Yeah, I know you're a big T.Y. McGill fan.
He's been good.
Hassan Ridgeway certainly doesn't have anything locked up. Yeah, he has. Yeah, he shows up. He does.
Yeah.
He's an older guy. I mean, he's not a kid. He's been around.
Oh yeah, he was. They kept him on the practice squad last year, but he's a 28-year-old guy. I think he's old.
Yeah, I think he is 28. I'm just actually looking up here.
And last year they kind of gamed the system a little bit. Like they called him up 5 times from the practice squad. The rule was 2, but then they had these COVID exemptions, and they kept using them on him, which kind of stinks for him, because in another season they probably would have just signed him to the active roster. But he played a lot for them last year.
Yeah, he's going into his 7th season. He was with the Colts before Frank and those guys, but he was with the Browns. I forgot he was with the Eagles in 18, played 2 games, then was with the Chargers for a couple of years, and then back here played 7 games. He's 28, he'll be 29 in November, NC State, undrafted. Interesting player. I mean, he's shorter than you would expect for, an NFL D lineman, but yeah, he knows what he's doing out there.
Yeah. Just a name to keep in mind.
Yeah, interesting guy.
Yeah. Another big thing from the open practice, and it's a guy we've talked about a lot, was Tyree Jackson. He makes a lot of plays, and he seems like Joe Flacco only throws the ball to Tyree Jackson.
Seems that way, doesn't it?
That's it. He's just locked in on 80, and that's where he's going with the ball.
I don't blame
Jackson
him.
had one great touchdown catch, and he slammed the ball over the goalpost. The goalpost was moving for a while.
I was a little worried about the goalpost there for a bit, but yeah, he does something to get your attention every day. Jackson, not Flacco. Yeah. Flacco did call a clutch timeout though.
Yeah, how about that? I've never where they're in a move drill, like, so the teams where they started like the 20 or 30, probably 20, and they're moving down the field, and he gets to the line, takes a step back, and calls a timeout.
He looks around. He's like, looks at
practice. I mean, I understand situational football, but that's like next level stuff. Calling a timeout in practice. And then it was funny. Normally at practices, we're all kind of spread out all over the fields, but when we're at the link, we're all like sequestered in the press box, and we all went, "What? He's called timeout?"
Yeah, it was a funny moment, but the next play, I think he threw like a 25-yarder to Jack Stoll, maybe.
Yeah, who, by the way, is starting to show up a little bit more.
He is. He catches the ball well.
Yeah, he was someone who I thought had a real shot to make the roster. The problem is Tyree Jackson has surpassed him and Jason Kroom and Caleb Wilson and that whole group. That's going to be an interesting roster decision, because we don't, like, right now, their 3 are Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and Richard Rodgers. We'll see what happens with Zach if he's still here. But another thought is Richard Rodgers is a vested veteran. If they cut him and bring him back in week 2, his salary won't be guaranteed. And it might be easier to then sneak Tyree Jackson to the practice squad after initial cuts are over, like a week into the season.
Yeah, and they did
that with Donnell Pumphrey,
right,
a few years
Thank
ago.
God. Yeah. And what Dave is saying is that if you're a vested veteran, which means you have at least 4 years of pension credit, 4 years that you've played in the league, at least if you're, I think you have to be on the active roster, 4 weeks to get a year of pension, or 6 weeks? 4 to 6. So if you've done that, if you're a vested veteran and you're on the roster on opening day, your base salary for the year, is guaranteed. So that's why you see a lot of veterans get cut just before opening day and then brought back, that Monday.
One of my favorite moments with that was the Eagles cut Najee Good. They did the same thing, and we saw Najee walking out of the building. We said, "See you in a couple of weeks." Najee said, "Yep, I'll see you soon." He knew the deal, So they'll do that. The Eagles are known to do that, so that wouldn't.
Well, every team does it. That's the way it's written, and the player certainly has the option of going somewhere else if he gets an offer. Some players take it personally, and I'm not going back there, but some guys just leave all their stuff in their locker. I mean, that has happened. He's still got a locker, so they'll probably bring him back. So yeah.
All right, that's all I have from the open practice. Oh, the one last thing, pretty cool. All the Eagles coaches and staffers were wearing Harold Carmichael t-shirts. It's fun. The whole organization is just so happy for Harold. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool to see. Doc tweeted out a photo of Harold and himself from Canton, and it's crazy that they went to the same high school.
Rains High weird, isn't it?
In Jacksonville, yeah. Rains High School, and Lito Shepherd also went there.
Yeah.
So three pretty good players from the same high school in Jacksonville. It's pretty cool. And the last 2 Eagles Hall of Famers. I mean, how many high schools even have 2 Hall of Famers? Much less from the same team.
Yeah, it's rare.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Saturday. So we mentioned Sunday's practice. Saturday's practice. It was ugly. And Nick Sirianni tried to explain it away and say it wasn't as bad as it looked. It looked pretty bad from where I was sitting or standing, I guess. The defense just blew them out of the water.
Yeah, they did. And I asked Nick about it yesterday before practice, and he said, well, sometimes you walk out of practice and say, well, that was really ugly. But then you watch the film and say, oh, it wasn't that bad. I'm not buying it. I don't think Nick's ever lied to us until yesterday. It was awful for the offense, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't complete a pass.
It was a period without a completed pass.
There were 5 straight passes that Jalen threw that were knocked down. And they were, the defense was just getting more and more, stoked and energized, and they just dominated the period. And people ask me, was it more the offense stinking or the defense playing great? It was both. It was really both.
And it is tough to tell.
It just
sometimes.
snowballed.
Yeah, and you can feel that sometimes when the defense is playing like that, they start to kind of feel themselves a little bit more, and it's tough for the offense to get it back.
And if you guys never went to Lehigh or Westchester, and obviously most people don't get a chance to see these practices at NovaCare, they get really, players get really, hyped up for team drills, and
especially defensive backs. When you have defensive backs, and this is why watching D-backs is my favorite thing in practice, because they have the ability to just wreck a practice more than anyone else. Because if they start, when they're doing their jobs right, everything else is broken. And it's really fun to watch them kind of thrive on that energy.
And they have good D-backs, and they have good corners. And, they get really practice.
Did you ever think you'd say that, by the way?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I probably said it in 2011 and I was wrong. I thought, wow, they got Nnamdi and DRC. This is pretty wild. But it didn't go so well. But
you know what's funny though? I look back at that Nnamdi time, and look, he wasn't as bad as people made him out to be. He wasn't what we thought he was. But I remember watching him in that training camp thinking, this guy can cover.
Yeah.
Do you remember thinking like he was sticking on people?
Yeah, he was. What happened?
It was Nate Allen's fault, and he was happy to tell you.
yeah, that's a big part of it. But anyway, God, that was 10 years ago. That dream team, it's crazy. But yeah, so like the other day, Craig James was right in front of us. He knocked the ball down, dove, knocked the ball down, and got up he was right in our face. He was like just screaming, and the guys are mobbing him. It gets really emotional and really energized, and it's really fun to watch. This isn't just practice where guys are running reps. They take it really seriously, and that's what happened Saturday. It was just the defense just had so much confidence in that drill, and I've never seen a pass get knocked down 5 straight reps, but somebody was going to find a way to knock that pass down, and Jalen wasn't making great decisions in that stretch either.
Yeah, it was a bunch of different things. It was the offensive line without their 2 starting guards, kind of getting steamrolled. Even Lane got beat a few times.
And it was Dillard's day with the ones.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So
the O-line was breaking down. The receivers weren't getting separation. And Jalen was making some poor decisions. So it was just all 3 phases of the offense were kind of broken.
I think what you saw was Jalen's competitiveness. Like, I think he just started trying. He's like, I'm going to stick this one in. Instead of just kind of and this has not been, emblematic of his training camp, but in that little stretch, he was trying to do too much. And, after the first couple, he's like, all right, well, I'm going to stick this one in here. And it's just, they kept knocking him down. And Hakeem Butler went over and gave him some words of encouragement. I'm thinking, man, if Hakeem Butler's giving Jalen Hurts words of encouragement, we're all in trouble. But the flip side of it was great to see the defense playing like that. It was really something.
Yeah, it was. Speaking of defense, Alex Singleton back at practice. He missed the first 8 days of practice. Yeah, he tested positive for COVID. He said he is vaccinated. He tested positive. Didn't really have. I think he said some really mild symptoms. He felt fine, but he was quarantined and he had to try to stay in shape. It was pretty funny. He said he was working out in a hallway of his house, 11-yard sprints, I guess. he did say the walk comes quick, which is funny. But it's good to have him back, and I think he's looked good the first 2 days back. It doesn't look like he's been rusty at all.
Yeah, and it's a credit to the shape that he was in during the offseason that he was able to do this. He said he got some weights and did some stuff at home, and that's tough. I mean, that's tough. And he had a couple days before he started practicing. He was at practice, so he's getting his cardio and all that. But he's got fresh legs. I thought he looked really good yesterday. I mean, he looked good Saturday too. It speaks a lot of how seriously a guy like him takes the off season. And this is a kid who's undrafted, who played in Canada, who's never had that big contract and has that mentality of, I've got to prove myself every day. And when you have that mentality, you're in shape in May and you're in shape in June. And if something like this happens and you miss a week of practice, you can absorb it, you can handle it. And that's what he showed. It speaks highly of him.
Yeah. He had a moment of honesty on Sunday, though. He did admit, like, if this was last year and I missed a week of practice, I'd be going crazy because he wasn't established. He's fighting for a roster spot. Whereas this year, it's still not ideal to miss a week, but I think he can feel a little more secure about his spot with this team. So I totally get where he was saying there. Could you imagine if you're trying to make a team and you miss a week?
Yeah, that'd be stressful.
Yeah, especially when you haven't been in the league. Like Andrew Adams is probably a bubble player and he missed a week, but he's been in the league for a while. It's not like, I mean, Alex Singleton this time last year, we didn't know if he was going to be an NFL player.
He was buried behind Nate Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, and other guys too. But he looked good going out there, and he's been working with Eric Wilson. Again, I think those two are your nickel linebackers. They're going to be your two starters for the most part. And then we've seen them mix around combinations, and they're still doing that. But I think we kind of know that it's going to be Wilson and Singleton out there most of the time. And then we'll see who else mixes in. We thought Davion had a chance to do that, and now he's hurt. Jacoby Stevens is hurt. TJ Edwards, as much as he might be limited, I still think is their best option as the third linebacker. I think he should be out there in base situations.
Yeah, and I think he's had a pretty good camp, actually. I think he's looked solid. I don't think he'll play as much as he did last year, I would think, with Eric Wilson here. The Davion Taylor, well, both injuries are unfortunate, for a couple of young guys who were in the mix to have some sort of role, maybe not huge roles, but they were, working toward at least finding some sort of role. I'm intrigued by Jacoby Stevens and his skill set, and Davion's a kid who, we just want to see him. You just want to see him practice and play, and it's a shame, and he might be. I think they're calling him week to week, right? So
yeah, with a calf, and he's got a boot on. So
yeah, he had a boot on. So that's a tough one, but they, I think up top, those three guys are pretty solid, and I think the Wilson addition was an underrated, solid addition, kind of like. I mean, they added some guys on defense, just Anthony Harrison, Kerrigan, and Wilson. They're not. I don't think they're superstars at this point, but they're good pieces that really help the defense. So it'll be interesting to see Singleton, though, because he's never played a full season, and I think he led the NFL in tackles over the last 10 or 11 weeks, or he was second. I think he was second. I mean, if he can string that together, and I don't think he's going to be he did have the pick six against Nick Mullins, right?
Yeah.
And, he's not going to be a big sack guy, but just he's such a good tackler, and he's got such a nose for the ball, and he hustles, and he's all over the field. He'll be a crowd favorite because just the way he plays the game. And
yeah, he plays with hair on fire a little bit.
He does. And, we haven't seen a lot of great linebacker play around here lately where, guys, there's just missed tackles have been a problem for years, really. 17, Bradham played well, and Kendricks had played well, and they won a Super Bowl. But since then, it's been tough. So looking forward to seeing a whole season out of Singleton and what Wilson can do. I mean, he's looked fine.
What do you make of I don't know what to call it. It's kind of the stand-up rusher linebacker position. To me, it almost feels like Gannon's trying to shoehorn this position into the defense. I don't know if they have the player to do it. The three guys they've been lining up there: Jannard Avery, Joe Osman, and Patrick Johnson, the rookie. And it seems like one of those guys has gotten, they kind of rotate, but they've gotten a lot of first team reps as that third linebacker. I don't know if any of them should be on the roster. Avery Early got a ton of first team reps, and they're really trying to figure out what that position looks like in this defense. And I think they want to have it, but I don't know if one of those guys is the player to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, Gannon, to his credit, is trying a little bit of everything in this camp, and he doesn't know these players. He wants to see who does what well. And, Avery's a guy who's been in the league, and the Eagles gave up a pick for him, and they want to get something out of him. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's really suited to doing that out of the guys we've seen try it. I mean,
I know Johnson's young. I mean, so it's tough to tell.
But he was a 7, right? Wasn't he a 7th round pick?
6 or 7.
I think he was a 7, but I mean, he's not good. None of these guys are going to be on. I don't think there's a roster spot for Avery anymore. And certainly, I mean, Joe Osman, he's a great kid and you root for him, but I don't see where he fits in. So I guess he's just trying a little bit of trying everything, kitchen sink type stuff. But yeah, I don't really see that being a big part of what they do.
Yeah, it's just been strange because it has been a big part of this summer.
Hey, score big with AAA Eagles MVP membership, along with the superb roadside assistance and discounts that you're used to from AAA. Get exclusive Eagles-related perks. This is a great deal. Now, for details, visit AAA.com/Eagles.
All right, Rube. So Jalen Hurts, what do you make of his camp? I think it's been kind of an up and down camp. He's looked sharp at some moments and then not so sharp at others.
Yeah, what you'd expect from a young quarterback. And he has been up and down. Overall, C+ to B-. We haven't seen the consistency, and there's been good throws and some great throws. And then there's been a step back. But, and you wrote a piece today, Monday, just about how at practice, his athleticism doesn't really have an opportunity to blossom, just because they're running plays, they're running pass plays. And if he takes off running, which he does sometimes, but that's not what practice is all about. They know he can do that. So, and use the Lamar Jackson example, which is a perfect one because, we saw him in the joint practices a few years ago and he was terrible. We didn't think he could play. And he was MVP that year because practice and games are completely different things, especially for a quarterback who uses his legs. It's just a completely different animal. You're trying to do certain things in practice that are very specific. You don't practice him running 20 yards down the field on a broken play. So that's part of it. I don't think he's gotten a ton of help. We've talked about the inconsistency from the receivers. Really, Quez is the only guy that's caught the ball consistently. A lot of those guys have been hurt or sick. I mean, Greg Ward and Quez missed time early. Devontae's been out. Now Hightower's out. They've all missed time. Except
J-Jaw's been there every day.
J-Jaw's been there every day. Gosh darn it. So I don't think those guys have helped him a whole lot. And Quez has been really good, but usually he's not out there with Jalen all that much. And then, you look at the O-line, he hasn't had Sayamalo or Brooks, and he's had Dillard half the days that he's been out there. So I'm not discouraged. I've seen enough good things to you see him making progress. And you do see good things. Obviously Saturday was a tough day, but that's going to happen. This is a kid who, and they just finished install. So they're just starting to practice with the plays that they spent the first 2 4-day blocks installing. And so he's running plays he's never run before. And he's thrown the ball to receivers he's never thrown to before, at least very little. And he's got a coach that he's never been his coach before. So there's a lot of new things. He's never been a first team quarterback. So there's a lot of new things here. all happening at once. It wasn't going to happen overnight. All in all, I'm excited. You know, he's getting better. I love his attitude, his mentality, his leadership. All the intangibles are there. He doesn't hang his head when a play doesn't go well. He's an incredibly positive kid, and I just can't wait to see him play.
Yeah, I want to see him in the pre. I hope he plays a decent amount in the preseason, because it's tough, because we watch practice and it's our job to evaluate it and tell you what we see. And a lot of the times it hasn't been great, but that's why I wrote the piece on Monday, because it's important to remember. And the Eagles are keeping this in mind too, that what they're seeing on the practice field isn't what they're going to get from him in games, just because of the nature of the way he plays the position. So I thought, the anecdote from Sirianni was a good one on Saturday, where, Jonathan Gannon thought that was a defensive win because, whoever it was, Derek Barnett's in the backfield and he's about to sack him, but Sirianni doesn't call it a sack because he says, no, Hurts gets away. Like, how do you quantify that ability in practice? It's really tough. The Eagles are trying, they're trying to account for it, but it's been tough. And we have seen, hints that they're going to use his legs, either designing plays for him to take off or as a decoy. A lot of read option type deals that we've seen in this offense, where even on Sunday, there was one play where Brandon Graham crashed really hard and Hurts didn't have the ball, but just the threat of him taking off did that. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. So hints about what the offense is going to look like, and they're trying to quantify his running ability, but it's really hard. And I'm just trying to think back to when Vic was here. But the problem was Vic's legs were a big part, but Vic had such a great arm that he could sit in the pocket and pick you apart. So I was trying to think back, have I seen a quarterback where his legs are going to be that big a part of his game? And I'd argue Vic wasn't that when he was here.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'm curious how it all play out, and I'm with you. I hope he plays a lot. Obviously, you want to keep guys safe, but with the 3 preseason games, and really they got rid of the 4th game. They didn't get rid of the first game because there's 2 weeks between the 3rd game and the opener. So I would think he would play a ton in that 3rd game. But
and you have healing time.
Yeah, that's true. But I want to see him play a lot. Yeah, Thursday against a pretty good defense and a team that has already played a game, and see how he does. Yeah. Boy, I just wish I wish Devontae would be back. They still list him as week to week, and they need that work together. I mean, he loves throwing to him. He loves throwing to Boston Scott. He loves throwing to the tight ends. Loves throwing to Devontae.
He throws a pretty deep ball.
He does. Yeah, I don't know where
drop.
I don't know where that all started, that, he didn't have a big arm. I mean, that's not the problem. He can throw it a long way.
Yeah. And it's it looks good.
Yeah. I mean,
some guys just throw a good deep ball. Carson.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Man, I was okay. Well, the previous quarterback, I hate myself right now. He had a big arm, but it wasn't always the prettiest deep ball. Sometimes the touch on the deep ball lacked a little bit. Whereas, can I say Nick Foles' name?
He tended to underthrow it,
or he'd throw it a mile. I mean, the touch wasn't there. Whereas, Nick always had a beautiful teardrop. Hurts is a little bit more like that. I mean, he'll drop it in.
Foles to a beautiful deep ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just
Hurts has a little bit of that though.
He does, and watch the throw to Deshaun last year.
Oh yeah,
his only completion ever to Deshaun. Yeah, he can. I think. Well, what surprised you the most about Hurts this camp?
I don't really know if anything surprised me. I think he's done pretty much what I expected.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing I've been impressed with how he throws outs. That was something that I really needed to see. But he seems to be able to make those throws too. So
yeah, there was one day last week where I was watching him warm up, well, not warm up. There was a period of practice throwing to backs. And he was awful. I mean, he was overthrowing everything. He was throwing balls in the dirt. It was like, oh man, he's not on today. And I was thinking this is gonna be. It was early. It was the first period. So I'm like, first period after individual, and I'm like, man, he's this is gonna be a really awful day. And he really cleaned it up. That impressed me that he didn't let a bad early start taint his entire practice.
Yeah, he actually seems to do better sometimes in team than individual, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like he raises to the level. I don't know. Because he'll miss balls that you're like, how did he miss that? And then the next rep, he's back to. But again, young quarterback. There's a lot being thrown at him, and we're 2 weeks in, and he's fun to watch. I mean, I think there's something there. There's clearly something there. I think he's got good coaches, good people instructing him. He's getting better. I'm encouraged.
Good. How about overall defensive thoughts real quick? We haven't really talked about the defense as a whole. I've kind of liked what I've seen from them.
Yeah, they've been better than I expected. I mean, they play really well together. I think that the Steve Nelson it's almost like they're a different defense. I mean, just obviously we talked about this. 2 positions got better. Avante is a good slot. He's just not a good outside corner. 2
of your 11 positions immensely improved.
That's 18% of your defense got significantly better. And Slay's playing at a high level. We talked about the linebackers getting better, and now Singleton back. And we know they have one of the best D lines in the league. So there's, they bolstered each group during the offseason, and they play well together. I think they're really well coached. I think Gannon is I've been impressed with him these first couple weeks.
Me too. There's something there. He brought up the Rams whenever we talked to him last about how multiple they were. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, yeah, Brandon Staley got a head coaching gig because he was so good. That to me, that's a worry with Gannon. I think he could be really good.
Yeah. And again, not a lot of defensive coaches are getting head coaching jobs, but
there were a couple in this hiring cycle.
Yeah, a couple did. He's got that. You can tell he's going to be a head coach. I mean, there's some guys you can just tell. It's just a matter of when. I'll tell you what, they're going to, if they're top 10 defense next year, he's gone after 2022.
Okay. So you're saying 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny, you look at last year and they were top 10 defense like 10 weeks into the season. And then the whole thing just fell apart, and the injuries got worse and worse, and then the offense couldn't do anything. So the defense was on the field more. It's just, the whole thing just fell apart, but there is talent on that defense. And my biggest concern is just the aid. And this is all without Rodney. Rodney hasn't practiced yet. We don't know when we'll see him.
He's been working on the side field. He looks pretty good.
He does look good. He's running around. But he's not close. As far as like practicing tomorrow or anything, but I don't think he's going to miss a huge part of the season. I think he'll be back pretty early. If not, he wants to be back by the opener. I don't think that's going to happen, but it'll be soon. Maybe possible. It will, but they don't really have any weak links on that defense. When you look at it, there's no guy that you're trying to hide or trying to upgrade from. I feel like they got 11 solid guys, 12, and depth, especially up front. And maybe not in the back seven. They don't have that depth, but they probably can't afford injuries back there. They're, if Slay or Nelson got hurt, now you're.
But McPherson's been good enough in camp that I think he might be able to fill in.
He's the next guy.
He's been good enough where I don't think they need to put Avante back outside.
That's fair. That's a fair point. He has been really good. But yeah, so I think this is, I've been surprised just by how consistent they've been. The defense hasn't had a bad day. I think the offense might have won. Offense won one day and maybe two. so
Maybe
far.
two. Yeah.
Maybe two. I think one might have been a push, but the defense hasn't had a bad day, and it's been interesting to watch. Got to keep the older guys healthy. I mean, that's what it comes down to: the Fletches and BGs and Kerrigans, and once Rodney gets back, they that
It's
D
funny. We
line.
spend so much time talking about all the other players, and Fletcher's still a motor.
Yeah, he's had a good camp.
Yes.
He looks.
Watching him go against Jack Driscoll in one-on-ones was just.
Yeah,
I felt so bad for poor Jack Driscoll. His second day at guard.
Six-time Pro Bowler versus a guy who's had 1 day experience playing guard.
It went about as well as you would expect.
Yeah, and I mean Driscoll played. I think he played some guard in college. I think he did.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah. So I think when he was at Boston College, he played guard before he transferred. But yes, Fletch. So this could be a really solid defense. I believe, and they're going to have to lean on them because the offense is going to. Yeah, it's going to take some time for them to get where they need to be. I think they're going to have their ups and downs. Hey, it's been a year full of uncertainty, but one thing is certain: Independence Blue Cross can help you make the healthcare decisions that are right for you. Choose coverage you can count on with the region's strongest network, Independence Blue Cross. Learn more at ibx.com.
All right, Rube, stock up player. Give me one.
I'm going to go Milton Williams.
Okay, I like that.
He's really caught my eye. He wasn't bad early, but really like the way he's playing.
Yeah, that's fair. He's been really fun to watch, and I think he's gotten better too as camp has kind of worn on. I have one. This is a deeper dive, but Coyote Awosika,
Yeah,
guard from Buffalo, he's looked really good to the point where I'm starting to think he might have a roster spot, or at least be really pushing for one if they keep. We'll see how many they keep, but if they keep 10, I think he's got a real shot.
Yeah, I do too. And it was funny. We were talking to Tyree Jackson about him because they were teammates at Buffalo, and he was saying it's really weird because like in college he was blocking for me, and now I'm like lining up and like I see him over here. It's just like totally strange. But he was telling us the other day, just keep an eye on this guy. He's really, really good. Now, guys say that about their teammates, but I mean, yesterday he was really good. It was just you just try to keep an eye on him because Barrett, our boy Barrett, was sitting right behind us, and like every snap he took, Barrett was like, "Whoa, you see that? You see?"
I love watching those one-on-ones with Barrett.
Yeah,
as much as we've seen them, like getting his insight on him is just really fun. And yeah, he's been a big fan of his.
Yeah, he looks like a player. So that's a good one. You have a stock down?
Sure. Am I going stock down? I'll give you one. I'll go Marlon Tuipulotu. And maybe this is just because of his style that he's not showing up in practices, but I thought, I thought he was a little more polished even than Milton. We knew Milton had like the raw athleticism, but I didn't know how it would translate. Marlon played a lot of high level football at USC, and I thought maybe it would translate a little better than it has. He hasn't stood out at all. And even a Coyote on the other side, it's funny, I picked the 272s without realizing it, but they've gone against each other quite a bit. And the undrafted player has gotten the better of the drafted player most of the time. So I'm looking forward to seeing Marlon in games because maybe it'll be a little different, because I think he has a little bit more of a run stuffer skill set than Milton, who's kind of get after the passer. So it's tougher for it to show up, but I've been a little disappointed by him so far.
Well, I'm going to stick with this D tackle theme and go Ridgeway for stock down. He's a guy who I thought played pretty well the last 2 years, got hurt both years in week 7. Kind of thought he was the number 3 D tackle coming in, but that's not the case anymore. Milton Williams is bypassed him, and I really haven't seen a whole lot from Ridgeway. I'm not sure he reported in the best shape of his life. We just haven't seen much from him.
Yeah, that's a fair one. And normally with defensive linemen, if you're not noticing them, it's a problem. They should be wrecking a little bit.
Yeah, no question about it.
Okay. All right. You got anything else before we wrap this up? Do you guys want to talk about track or something?
Do you want to talk about track or something? Well, there's two quick things.
Yeah.
Number one, we didn't have a chance the other day to talk about Harold and going in the Hall of Fame, and we touched on it with the Reigns High School thing, but you just think this is a 7th round pick, you know, who and Ray Didinger tells a story about how the Eagles, and this actually has to do with track. They had John Carlos in camp that summer, and they were trying to figure out which one to keep. John Carlos was an Olympic sprinter, a quarter miler, and they were trying to figure out which one to keep as like the last wide receiver. Harold Carmichael, this unknown 7th round pick from Southern University, or this young guy who was a huge story in camp, John Carlos, the Olympic sprinter. And they were leaning toward Carlos, and at the last minute, they decided to keep Harold. So that's how close he came to never even playing here. Who knows if he ever would have played anywhere? He wasn't a guy who had immediate success. You know, it took him a couple of years. But once he did, from his 3rd year, 73 to 83, he led the NFL in catches, yards, and touchdowns. And, you know, he hasn't played here since, what was his last year? 83, I think. So he hasn't played here in 38 years, and he's still the franchise record holder in catches, yards, and touchdowns, which is incredible. And, you know, Ertz is pretty close to him in catches. Ertz will catch him if he's here this year, presumably. I think he's only like 30 back. Yeah, Harold was top 10 in everything when he retired in NFL history. And it took a long time for him to get in, but I'm just so happy for him. So that's it. And then just New Jersey track, Athing Mo and Sidney McLaughlin. The U.S. Stop laughing. The U.S.
I like that you made fun of me for saying talk about track, and now you're talking about track.
The U.S. there are only 2 American women who were multiple medalists in track, and they're both from New Jersey. Sidney McLaughlin set a world record in intermediate hurdles and also ran on the 4x4, and Athing Mo set an American record in 800 and also ran on the 4x4. And you know, they're both, you know, from New Jersey, so it's really cool. So they ran the 5th fastest 4x4 ever and the fastest since 1993. So really cool. I enjoyed the Olympics, and only have to wait 3 more years for another one.
That's true. That's a little bonus.
That's right. I think Paris, right? I think in 2024.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right.
And you can't make fun of me because you said his name, he who shall not be named.
That's true. I shall serve my penance later.
Throw 25 cents in the jar.
Yeah. Please rate, subscribe wherever you get your pods, and leave a comment, review, all that stuff. We appreciate it. YouTube, click the like, subscribe button there. We appreciate that audience as well. And by the way, it's been cool at training camp. People have pulled us aside quite a bit to tell us they enjoy the pod. We appreciate that whenever we hear it. So thanks, everyone. We'll be back later in the week before the preseason game to kind of break down what we want to see in that. That's it. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.